Just a few technical reminding notes before we get started. If you experience any issues with your audio or video during the conference, just refresh your browser and that should take care of everything. If you have any questions for our speakers or panel members, please do feel free to post your questions on the video wall, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. We will share with our speaker at the end of the session, and they will reply to you through the video wall or through the email afterwards. If you'd like to connect with our speakers, please move to the home lobby page. You can find the speaker by typing their names under Networking tab on the right-hand corner of your screen. We welcome all of our audience to interact with each other through our networking features. And also, please feel free to tag us on our social media handles with the hashtag AIMDigital. Now for our next key session. We have gathered top women in fintech who will be sharing their insights on the topic, post-COVID, new opportunities for fintech. This session will discuss the impact of COVID on fintech, moving towards a cashless society and initiatives taken by both government and private sector. Just a quick reminder to our audiences present here today, please feel free to post your questions on the right side of the chat wall and keep the engagement going. Before we dive into the panel session, I'd like to welcome Dr. Mohammed Alyami, who is the Director, Development Effectiveness, Department of Islamic Cooperation for the Development of the Private Sector, to give his welcome remarks.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Greetings to all attendees and panelists. My name is Mohammed Alyami. I'm the Director of the Development Effectiveness Department at the Islamic Corporation for the Development of Private Sector. On the highlight of this session introduction that says, due to COVID, people have turned to fintech services than traditional financial services. This seems to be very true. However, financial technology sector or fintech, just like most other sectors, has been hit hard by the COVID-19 outbreak. A call for action is an urgency to help with post-COVID effects on startup. Researchers and observers are making recommendations to the multilateral development banks and leading organizations to bring in realistic and achievable solutions. The strong leadership of MDBs is vital for the success of this process. Our perspective that we can all recommend is sharing technology and innovations for the common good. A recent report published by the United Nations Secretary General's Independent Expert Advisory Group titled Mobilizing the Data Revolution for Sustainable Development recommended to create a network for data innovation networks. To bring together the organization and experts in the field, one objective of such network is to create incentives to innovate. Luckily, in 2019, ICD introduced the Financial Innovation Platform with an aim to encourage financial institutions to blurring the lines between the traditional operations and the emerging fintech-based operations. ICD also introduced its Innovation Award for fintech startups and financial institutions aimed to impressing fintech toward better financial inclusion and cashless society. The focus ought to be on fintech with high potential to scale up. In 2020, ICD also introduced the Financial Intelligence Platform, which include a financial literacy platform called Finlit, with so many interactive tools and fintech solutions such as financial gamifications, e-wallet, and mobile application apps. Most of these are being developed and will be operationalized in the second half of 2021. ICD's aim is to continue supporting the effort that open new opportunities for fintech, especially in the post-COVID-19 era. Furthermore, the ISDB Group private sector entities, ICD, ISIC, and ITFC, through the ISDB Group Platform Business Forum, FIQH, and the United Arab Emirates Ministry of Economy and AIM have teamed up to implement innovative online initiatives, including the Startups Virtual Pitch Competition, which is a virtual landscape for startups to shine, connect, network, and explore global market penetration in member countries. These initiatives were implemented successfully in more than 30 member countries, and we are currently approaching additional member countries. The motive behind these unique initiatives is to help member countries' economy connect with new partners and increase the FDI inflows into our member countries, which will definitely help in achieving the SDGs. Certainly, the session will highlight more on the post-COVID new opportunities for FinTech. Thank you, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed, for the welcome remarks. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Mirna Sleiman, CEO of Fintech Galaxy, who will be chairing the following panel discussion. Ms. Mirna, the stage is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Mirna Sleiman, founder and CEO of Fintech Galaxy. We are a digital platform that connects the global fintech ecosystem by offering a cloud-based innovation platform, an open API sandbox, and AI-powered fintech marketplace.
Hi, my name is Mazrouei. I'm the Executive Vice President for Fintech Hive at DIFC. The Fintech Hive is the first and largest fintech accelerator in the region. We have accelerated more than 100 companies through our different programs that are focused on early stage, growth stage, and funding startups. We work with more than 22 financial institutions and more than 65 ecosystem partners to develop and grow the fintech industry in the region. We are based in the DIFC, supported by the DIFC to advance the fintech integration collaboration opportunities in the region.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Mai. I've been in payments innovation and financial services innovation for 20 years, having worked with both incumbent banks and other financial institutions, but also with fintech startups. What I'm doing at the moment is connecting banks and fintech startups and building collaboration models, especially in the open banking, digital payments, and AI-related areas. One of my recent roles include being a fintech leader for PwC when I was driving the entire fintech agenda in Europe with a focus on Central Europe. So I'm based in Europe, in Poland, and I'm driving innovation in the payment ecosystem here in Europe. And recently I'm shifting towards more towards knowledge sharing. So I'm mentoring, I'm advising, but also speaking and educating people. I'm a senior lecturer with Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship in London. And I released recently an online course on the open banking and platforms in finance, as well as very, very fresh and recently launched conversational AI in banking. And it's my great pleasure to be part of this women-led panel.
Hi, everyone. And this is Amna Ajmal. I look after market development in MasterCard for Middle East and Africa, which includes strategy, M&A, acceptance, merchants, and digital partnerships. Prior to this, I was working with MasterCard in the US, leading the North America product organization. Before that, I worked with Citigroup in Europe, UK, and Poland. And I worked with Standard Chartered in Asia, Singapore, and Malaysia. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, ladies. Over the past 3 months, we've seen a turning point in the fintech industry. Consumers, businesses, governments are living in the new normal, and the world is currently transforming from a physical to a digital world, or what the new word that's being used now, which is phygital. Due to COVID, people have turned to fintech services more than the traditional and incumbent financial services. And in this session, I'm pleased to have 3 awesome ladies from different parts of the ecosystem to shed light on the opportunities in fintech, what's happening, the global trends, regional trends, and of course, the initiatives and how we're turning the challenges into opportunities. Let me start, please, with Amina from MasterCard. Amina, what's your view from a global perspective and a regional perspective on the changes in the fintech ecosystem from a pure sector, which is vertical, into actually an underlying infrastructure for many sectors like, healthcare, pharmaceutical, agriculture? Everything now is relying on digital financial services. What's your view on this and how the changes are driving innovation across the economies?
Thank you. So having lived in North America and Europe, Asia, as well as Middle East, I would say there are few key trends and drivers that are shaping the digital transformation and the innovation agenda across different industries. And they're pretty consistent across the world. I would say the first one of them is customer expectations. Customer expectations are rapidly changing. Consumers don't want to be treated like a number in a portfolio. They want to be treated personally, so personalization. If you look at our own lives, our behavior has changed a lot in the last few years. We no longer stand in a queue to take a cab. We're not waving our hand for a taxi. In fact, we take a car ride and we don't take a card from our wallet to make a payment. Payments are becoming invisible. So all these trends around consumer expectations are leading firms to use technology to deliver on these consumer needs that consumers did not even know that these needs existed. So technology is really playing an enabler to meet those unmet needs, but consumer expectations is driving the firms to think about those needs. The second, I would say, is the rise in the number of fintechs across the world. So if you look at global fintech funding in 2018, it was $111 billion. And this number in 2017 was $52 billion. So this is a 120% increase in global fintech funding. In MENA alone, the fintech startup number was 49. And within a year, it jumped to more than 450. That's a phenomenal growth. And these fintechs are disrupting virtually every industry in the world. They can go deep down into consumer experience challenges and solve them beautifully. So I think the rise in the fintech is one of the key drivers driving the innovation in different industries forward. Third, I would say, which is a consistent theme, is data. Technology will create 100-fold increase in data in the next 5 to 7 years. And that will create a world of possibilities and innovation opportunities for different industries. Not only that, if you layer artificial intelligence on top of this data, now the pace at which we can analyze the data and make sense out of it is much, much faster. The way we can read this data is completely different. So I think that's one of the key drivers. Fourth, I would say that the barriers to entry are lower than ever before. So the lines between industries are blurring. In our part of the region, we can see telcos entering into financial services, retailers entering into financial services. Across the globe, including in the US, you would see online marketplaces offering banking products and financial services. So that's another factor that's forcing the innovation and the digitization to move forward. Together with that, the fifth trend, I would say, is regulation. Regulations and the regulators are increasingly enabling entry of new players and fintechs into markets. So the lines between different industries are also blurring because regulators are enabling and fostering that innovation by allowing multiple players to play in actually businesses that are not their core business. So the diversification. So those five would be the key trends that I see across the globe driving the innovation and the digitization forward.
Thank you. Coming back to the region and looking at those same trends, maybe Raja, from your perspective and from the DIFC's point of view, how is the ecosystem developing with the latest changes driven by, the pandemic and all of that, especially focusing on the infrastructure, all the work that Dubai has put in place to prepare an environment and infrastructure for fintech, the abundance of talent, capital, demand, as in, the banks and the community, and of course, regulations. Can you tell us how those trends that Amina just mentioned are being reflected in the region?
Absolutely. So we started the whole fintech journey back in 2017, and at that time we were actually asked, what is fintech and what are you talking about? And at the beginning of the journey, we would go and meet with the financial institutions and talk about the importance of digital transformation, importance of adoption of innovative technologies to capture that consumer base that could easily switch to a smaller provider who would provide these services in a very efficient manner. With COVID, regardless with the pandemic and the lockdown, that really accelerated that journey. And I know we used to joke about it, but it's a reality. We've realized that we had to switch to online digital platforms to continue working, regardless of where we were in the world. Some people were stuck in different countries, but they were able to log in. They were able to leverage on all the technology channels to communicate, collaborate, to drive the business forward. And the DIFC and the by government has been a pioneer in that by providing the stimulus packages for all the companies that are registered within the DIFC, also enabling the innovation license, whereby enabling more entrepreneurs to venture into technology innovation, as you can create a company right from the comfort of your own home. And also connecting these companies to a wider ecosystem that is willing and excited about these technology opportunities really enabled us to capture a growth in the number of tech companies that are registered in the center. And with the pandemic, as you have seen, a lot of institutions started reducing the number of employees working for them for different reasons. But the opportunity that was created during that time is including those talents into the entrepreneurial world, leveraging on the licenses that are available, the funding that is available, and being part of an ecosystem that is eager for leveraging on tech innovations to capture the new norm.
Thank you, Raja. Anna, Raja spoke a lot about the ecosystem and about the fintechs. And we know that you're very passionate about bringing or bridging the ecosystem, especially when it comes to institutions and fintechs. Can you tell us more about how that is even changing as a trend, that trend of collaboration between the various parts of the ecosystem?
Yeah, so thank you for this question, Mirna, because you use the term ecosystem, which is really encompassing all the stakeholders and the way of doing business nowadays, not only in financial world, of course. So I would definitely refer what Raja said, but also what Amna raised, because there is a growing number of fintechs, and definitely in terms of the collaboration models, we can also witness the need for collaboration. That's the first thing. So if we have the need for a collaboration, so needless to say, in the COVID-19, but also in the post-pandemic, hopefully a new normal, we will definitely see the acceleration of digital transformation, but also the collaboration models. So this is being done between incumbent banks and fintechs. And what I witness is the acceleration of this fintech collaboration in different levels, because it's not only about the acquisition, of course, this is about the partnerships and different collaboration models. And the second thing here is when we are talking about the ecosystem, encompassing all the stakeholders, and we touch upon this multi-sector approach. So definitely it's going beyond finance, or it's going beyond banking itself. And we have some winning sectors, because of course there are some winners, if I can use this term, in the COVID-19 situation. This is healthcare, this is health tech, this is edutech, online education, but this is also the fintech sector. So definitely we should look beyond the financial world, and we see this. And so there are like stakeholders from multi-sector, also the public sector, also the governmental sector, also some people from academia joining. So this is about the building collaboration and collaboration model. And in terms of the areas of focus, this is very much of importance as well, because there were some changes in the banking priorities. So of course, this is much more about the new revenue generating and of course, customer retention. And digital transformation is a part of that. So we will talk about the digital onboarding, also about digital payments, that was the topic was already raised, about the embedded financing, embedded crediting, or embedded lending. This is the area of focus, and general trends that were mentioned, like, of course, there are global trends, open banking, but also looking for the new interface that will be invisible, will be seamless. This can be, of course, digital payments, online, e-commerce, but it can also be done via conversational AI, so the chatbots and voice bots that are on the rise as well. And last but not least, if we are talking about the collaboration and if we are talking about the ecosystem, this is about the platforms. And of course, the platform models, when we basically put together, when we connect different stakeholders, and instead of doing and implementing some solutions like standalone, so we can use the potential and the synergy of all these stakeholders in an ecosystem, this is a good way to do. So the platforms, of course, they are not only like new players and big tech players, and of course, Asian giants, there are also like new fintechs, but also very, very well-known incumbents, banks, but also payment organizations like MasterCard or Visa are also just paving the way and basically just going this path. So I would say this is about building the collaboration models and going into this platform approach.
We're going to talk a lot about the opportunities that we are seeing and we should be capturing these days. I always hear this term, Mr. COVID is the world's most famous digital officer. And well, some people say it's Miss COVID because of the mess that, that it has created. But I tell them if COVID was an agent for change, it's actually an opportunity rather than a challenge. However, let me ask you here and all of the panelists about the challenges that we're facing. We can't undermine the importance of changing our operating models and our mindset and our culture and the skill set to deal with the new norm, which is, you know, the social distancing, less travel, less physical space. And let me go back to Amina here. And Amina, from your experience at MasterCard, what were the biggest challenges that were presented to a company of your size with the pandemic? Let's talk about operations. Let's talk about working from home. Let's talk about connectivity with your customers. Can you highlight some of these challenges and maybe the lessons learned?
I would say that, as you said, you know, the shift towards digital acceleration post-COVID has been huge. And I think it has been in our personal and professional lives. We had to learn new ways of working, new ways of interacting with each other, new ways of balancing professional and personal lives. I can give my own example. I resumed work from my maternity leave. My maternity leave ended in April. That's when I joined work. And I literally entered into a completely virtual world. And I was really looking forward to go to work. It was a completely different world. But I think what made a huge difference was a level playing field. We've always had a remote working policy at MasterCard and flexible ways of working. But I think this time it was a level playing field. And that's why everybody came together. Everybody had this openness towards new ways of talking to each other, new ways of building relationship, new ways of establishing trust with each other. So I think that was a huge lesson for everybody to even learn new technology, new platforms, and a lot of soft skills of how you build a relationship with someone you've never met before. You're just having a virtual interaction with them. So I think that shift in our ways of working and embracing it with a lot of positivity in difficult times, because everybody was in the same boat, was, I would say, a very positive learning experience for all of us. Of course, it was a very difficult situation, but from a business side, we see that the shift towards digital is definitely here to stay. If we look at our data in Middle East and Africa, out of every $100 spent, half of it was spent on e-commerce in May of this year. And this was 1/3 only in February this year. In UAE itself, 77% of the face-to-face transactions in May of this year were contactless. And this number used to be 33% Feb of last year. So you can see a huge growth towards contactless transactions, shift towards e-commerce, and that definitely is here to stay. So while there have been challenges around us adopting new ways of doing grocery shopping, new ways of using payment instruments, new ways of working in personal lives as well as professional lives, I think the trend towards digital acceleration, to your point, is something that everybody has adopted positively and is going to here to stay.
What about you, Raja, at the DIFC? How did this shift from physical space to digital, given that the DIFC Hive is the region's largest fintech accelerator? You're home to many fintechs. They fly from different countries to come and spend time with you. How did you cope with that? And anything in particular you want to say about the talent, about the skills that you're expecting from the new generation of fintechs coming to the lab?
I believe, Mirna, it has proved to us how important building the relationships and the community, regardless of the physical space. So we run an annual FinTech Accelerator program, and usually it is in person. And we were so hesitant to shift it to virtual because we value the personal interaction with the stakeholders. However, given the circumstances, we shifted to virtual, and we still see the same level of engagement. I believe in substance and the value that you create through your programs or engagements and the relationships that have been invested in will always support that shift. At the same time, it enabled us to look at an untapped opportunity of many players within the ecosystem or from the startups that are not based in the region, but are really excited about the regional opportunities, whether it's for funding, whether it's for business opportunities. And we've realized that we definitely can connect them, bridge them, collaborate with them, even if they were not physically based here. So we continue to have our webinars and our sessions, and also some networking sessions, because we just missed everyone. We're used to meeting everyone all the time, and I personally meet new companies all the time because they continue to set up in the IFC, and we just missed that human element of it. So we had a couple of just catch-up sessions online, and interestingly, they've actually joined, most of the companies joined, and they were happy to share their experiences, the challenges that they thought they would go through, but really it proved to be an opportunity. Employment laws are being reviewed everywhere. Working from home is an opportunity today. And we realize that we don't need to be physically here, but it gives us an opportunity for an inclusion in the workplace, whether it's women, whether it's untapped talent, with the gig economy becoming a trend right now because of the opportunities that are created with this. You actually capture a bigger slice of this economy and engage these brains around any type of work that you're doing right now. So I believe there was a shock in the beginning that we all suffered from, but then we started to look at the opportunities that come with this challenge.
What are the top 3 challenges that the fintechs faced during the past few months?
I believe fintech valuations were impacted at the very beginning of the pandemic because the fintech was trending in general, and everyone was looking and setting up funds to invest in fintech, and everyone was betting on that transformation agenda. And then when this whole pandemic hit, I believe a lot of investors paused. They wanted to understand what was going on. The fintechs were not able to run without that flow of funding. So it really took valuations back to realistic numbers, which was very healthy, I think, at that time. The second time, the second thing would be that the real fintechs that come with real solutions and real talent were able to prove their capability and commitment to work with these institutions. And that's where you see a lot of solutions were offered by the banks who lost the interaction with the consumers, however, started providing these products online. And the third challenge, I would say, was the realization of actually we can work together regardless if we're at home or business, and we don't need these big spaces to operate. However, we need the relationship, we need that alignment, we need that harmony and synergy across the team members, because we're a team, and as a team we deliver all of these things. And once you have that backbone established, regardless of where you are in the world, you are able to contribute and grow the company.
Thank you. Anna, do you see the same challenges facing fintechs globally? As Raja mentioned, funding, talent, physical proximity to hubs, even regulatory issues, regulatory challenges. How is the view from Europe and from international markets?
Yeah, I'm very much echo with Raja, because even we made a survey at WBAF, and this is not only about fintechs, this is about the startup ecosystem and startup community. So it's a broader perspective. So it's an international and global one, because more than 80 countries were included. So what we discover is, first of all, the funding and the financing gap. Because of course with the dropping valuation, but it was a kind of short-term event and basically short-term observation. But then of course we still witnessed the problem with funding, because of course the VCs, but also CVCs, the corporate player, are much more selective. They are much more focused in certain areas, but this is also due to the cycle, investment cycle with the digital transformation, that of course we are working online and digital, but still it's time consuming and sometimes requires more time to close the transactions and to conduct the transactions. So definitely there is a funding or financing gap. This is something that I can confirm. The second point is with the talent and the workforce. But the third one is about the business development and demand for the services, because we know that some of the sectors, fortunately fintech, not to the whole extent, because there are some sub-segments in fintech that are more touched by COVID, but some of them of course are just blooming and growing, like crediting, online instant crediting, digital payments of course. But definitely there is a problem with the demand for the services. This is what startups are facing. So either they have to relaunch their solutions and definitely to pivot and to look for any alternatives, how to reposition their products and services. So I would say these are like the major challenges, but some of these challenges are of course common for the entire fintech industry. This is not only fintechs, but some of the incumbent banks and other financial services companies are also facing this problem. And what I would add to this list is definitely the longer so basically the longer implementation cycle in many cases. So a lot of implementations that were postponed or prolonged in time. And we know this much about the execution. So it's a very like a painful point for many of the fintechs. But on the other side, so a kind of on a flip side, the sales cycle has been shortened in many cases. So I witnessed a situation when, of course, fintechs are quite agile, they are quite fast, and they can just sell and negotiate and go through all these discussions very quickly. But then on the incumbent side, this is also shortening. So the sales cycle, generally speaking, has been shortened in a digital, and it's still digital, of course. So I would say, and there's also much focus on POS, so a proof of POC, sorry, a proof of concept, and very much selective in the way to implement it. So I think this is the phenomenon touching not only fintechs, but also just mostly the startup ecosystem globally.
If we look at the challenges and the flip side, there are opportunities, of course, to this crisis that we're going through now, the pandemic. And one of the changes, which from my personal perspective, I see it a positive change, is actually the acceleration of regulatory changes that we've been wanting and we've been waiting for years, and it wasn't happening until I think regulators realize that the only way to cope with this new norm and the social distancing is to allow for the digital transformation, new regulations for fintech, new regulations for payments, and new regulations for open banking. From your perspective, Amina, have you seen this shift in regulatory acceleration to cope with the changes and to allow institutions to actually innovate in the right direction and the right speed?
Absolutely. I think the whole shift toward creating cashless societies, and I think governments are increasingly working towards making cashless societies, digitizing economies. And I think COVID has definitely accelerated that and bring that more to the forefront of the discussions. I think also what is helping is the entry of the new players, as Anna was talking about, the fintech, which are really entering and helping in building this ecosystem, which now the regulators are very, very open to. And you can see some of the work that MasterCard has done because our strategy of innovation is based on partnership and collaboration with different ecosystem players, because no one can innovate alone in today's world. That's not the case today. So if you look at some of our work done in Africa with telcos, for example, we signed a partnership last year with Airtel, where we're enabling 100 million consumers with a virtual card solution and MasterCard's QR capability to get access to digital financial services. If you look at this year in MENA region and specifically UAE, we signed a partnership with Delivery Hero, where riders for the first time would get access to their savings and their earnings in almost real time. So I think there's a lot that's happening because of the encouragement of the governments and the regulators for a push to create more of a digitally inclusive economy and to create a cashless society. And you see this work happening in every sphere of life. You see it happening in transit, you see it happening in government disbursements. So our vision at MasterCard, of course, is to have a world beyond cash. And I think now is the right time because all the forces are actually participating together to create these ecosystems, to create an inclusive economy, to actually have a digitally inclusive world. And if we have to create an inclusive world, we need to find out inclusive ways of working. And that purely is based on partnership and collaboration.
Speaking about partnerships and collaboration, MasterCard is one of the most active companies globally in creating programs for fintechs to plug into your consumer base or customer base, let's call them that. Can you tell us more about the initiatives that you have right now to bring collaboration into the ecosystem?
Sure. So in October, we launched a program called Fintech Express in Middle East and Africa. This is a very interesting program because it allows different fintech partners to get scale relatively quickly and to be able to getting access to MasterCard solutions, products, and services. We know that UAE is a very important market in this region. It gets almost half of the fintech funding, and more than half of the fintechs in this region are actually from UAE. That's a very, very important and critical market. So Fintech Express is one program that specifically caters to this market. We have globally a program called Start Path, which is also available in MEA. This is a very interesting program because we do 3 sprints a year, and in each of the sprint, we onboard 12 fintech partners. And they're great examples of companies like Signsy for digital onboarding or Indoor for AI. We bring in these fintech partners, we onboard them, and then we create partnership collaborative ways of making them work with traditional large financial institutions. There's also a third program that we have, which is called Engage. This program is primarily designed for enablers, which would enable our customers to implement solutions much faster and have speed to market from a go-to-market standpoint. This would include integration platform players like UPaid and enablers like Gemalto. So few of the programs that actually enable the fintech partners to get access to our solutions, our services, and also to get scale, because the marriage between fintech and large financial institutions is bound to happen because fintech really go deep and solve a customer pain point. And for a large financial institution, it's difficult because then they have to go deep into many different verticals. So this marriage between the two really helps drive the innovation and the consumer experience journey forward. So we really sit in the center of this ecosystem to enable that collaboration through these programs.
What about you, Raja, and the DIFC? What are the initiatives that you have put in place to capitalize on the opportunities out there?
So as soon as the pandemic hit, we actually launched our social accelerator program for social distancing, and we started tapping into areas of talent management, health tech, and so forth to enable faster adoption of those technologies. We've shifted our programs into a hybrid model between in-person and virtual. Currently, we run five acceleration programs. One in collaboration with the financial institutions that is focused on growth stage companies. The second is on early stage companies trying to shape their business ideas. The third one is for scale-ups who are interested in scaling in the region in partnership with the funding opportunities from key investment partners. We have as well a talent accelerator we just launched called Aspire in partnership with Startup Bootcamp, and that looks at upskilling talent from the market towards entrepreneurial opportunities. And finally, Accelerate Her, which is a female talent accelerator program that is focused on upskilling women from financial services or from tech and give them exposure into innovation and technology opportunities that enable them to grow across these two. We're also looking at further developing the ecosystem. We have seen some regulations were released by the DFSA, who are the independent regulator of the DIFC, including payments regulation that were very meaningful, especially during the pandemic, and also the open banking regulations. At the same time, we're looking at creating digital platforms to enable the fintechs to test their environment, test their technology in the regional environment set up under the supervision of the regulator and in partnership with the financial institutions to accelerate their market access rather than flying all the way here, invest in the relationship and have all the conversations before we actually take these products to market.
Okay, very good. And that is only at a DIFC level or at UAE country level?
So these are the DIFC initiatives. However, we have different agreements at the government level that enable us to collaborate with other key stakeholders within the government to enable access for the wider UAE.
Okay. Anna, do you want to comment on this particular subject when it comes to women empowerment? Because it's amazing how this panel turned out to be all females, female boss ladies. What is the impact of the the fintech wave and the shift into working from home and all this empowerment for the startups and the innovation ecosystem? How is this affecting women in particular in this space, and especially women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so the first point or observation that I would make is definitely, even with the survey that I mentioned, when we asked the startup founders about the COVID-19 consequences in terms of running the business, is that, of course, female-led startups, in a way, they were much more impacted because female are usually in a traditional way. I wouldn't like to use this term, but definitely they are much more involved in the household, meaning that they have the activities at home, but they also responsible for online education of their children. So definitely just juggling all these roles and trying to find time for business running, but of course also for other activities in the family and personal life was very much of a challenge, especially in a new normal in a digital world. So I think this is the one and most obvious observation confirmed by the survey. Otherwise, if we talk about the startup ecosystems, of course, this is quite balanced. So we can't say it's like, just that the female-led or female-founded startups are different than other startups. And I'm involved in some of the, in many different programs or initiatives, some of them that are very much empowering women and women leaders, and of course also women founders. And of course, there are some programs that are very specific for women, and when the female founders can apply and get financing, for example, or any kind of the support. But I would say there is a lot of initiatives. One of them is because I'm a member of the Global Startup Committee at the WBAF, which stands for World Business Angels Investment Forum. So what we are doing is, of course, one of the aims is to support, to foster the innovation driven by startups, especially fintechs in my case. But I'm also involved in the EIC, so European Innovation Council program, and the EIC Accelerator that is financing innovative SMEs companies across Europe. So we have a very good representation, well-balanced representation of different startups, not only fintechs. And of course, the minority of the fintechs and minority of startups is either founded or led by women. But of course, there are some programs that are trying to support and empower the females in these sectors. And when I look at the entire ecosystem, so of course, it very much depends on the sectors, as we said, and some of the sectors are interrelated. So we see cooperation between fintechs and health tech companies and retail companies. Also, there is a lot of happening in edutech, which is not directly related to fintech, but this is very much dependent on the sector itself as well. And I'm also part of the global fintech, European Fintech Accelerator, and which is a part of the global fintech accelerator. And we see a lot of companies, innovative fintechs, applying and going into this program across Europe. So this really confirms what was said before, that we see like a number of fintechs coming into play and new entrants in the ecosystem, which really is very much beneficial for all the stakeholders in this in the industry.
Thank you. Raja, going into 2021, what's your advice to startups and to the fintech ecosystem in the UAE and across the region to prepare for all the uncertainties that we will be facing going forward?
I think at this point that we will continue to be living in an uncertain world. However, the technology has proved to enable talent, businesses, and business opportunities and collaboration opportunities. So we need to continue to remain focused on the potential, on the opportunity, and also to expand our vision from being focused on a certain segment to look at the world as a whole. As a fintech or as a startup being based in Dubai, for example, does not mean that you cater for the consumers in Dubai only, but really today with the digital transformation, with the borderless world, you can definitely cater for the whole world. Keep a close eye and good relationship with the regulators, understand what's happening in that sphere, how can you leverage on regulations in certain areas, and being agile and resilient towards the journey will definitely enable faster access. Technology is here to stay. It is the focus of the future, and together we'll shape the future of finance.
And what about the investment opportunities? Do you see more investment going into fintech next year?
Absolutely. We continue to see new funds and new VCs being formed, and most of these are focused on the opportunity in fintech and also on female founders, because these two areas are being realized of the value that they contribute. The DIFC has a $100 million fund for investment in fintech, and there has been a few investments that were announced and few more to be announced very soon. And also the DIFC is building an enabling environment for VCs to set up and operate from the DIFC to support the ecosystem and support the investment opportunities in the region.
What about MasterCard, Amina? How is MasterCard preparing for 2021? And what's your advice to institutions out there?
There's a very famous quote by Wayne Dyer, which says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Yes, COVID has been extremely difficult for all of us at different levels, both personal and professional. But let's embrace the new world with a lot of positivity. You've talked a lot about growth in the number of fintechs, the opportunities that are emerging with it, and how we can continue the shift towards digital acceleration, drive inclusion, as well as work towards a more of a cashless society. Second thing I would say is the power of why not is more important in today than ever before. Digital transformation is not only about launching new products and new marketing campaigns and new mobile app versions, it's very much about looking at your existing processes and challenging them. Why do they exist the way they are? And can they be changed or can they be eliminated? So there's another very famous quote with which I would leave the audience, that some see the things the way they are and ask why, and others dream of things that never were and ask why not. So this is the time to ask why not.
Amazing, and a very, very nice way to end this panel. Thank you, Amina. Thank you, Raja and Anna. It was an absolute pleasure having you here today with us to look into the post-COVID world, the new opportunities for fintech. We do hope that the challenges that we're facing today turn into opportunities for the future, and we change and redesign the future of financial services. Thank you a lot, and thanks everyone for attending this session.
Thank you very much.
Mirna.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mirna, for chairing the session, and our amazing panelists, Ms. Raja Al-Mazrouei, Anna Mai, and Amna Ajmal, for sharing your great insights and making this a very interesting conversation. To our audiences, if you have any questions, please do feel free to post your questions in the chat box. We will share with our speakers at the end of the conference, and they will reply to you through the chat box or through an email afterwards. And if you'd like to connect with our speakers, please move to the home lobby page. You can find the speakers by typing their names on the networking tab on the right hand of your screen. We welcome all of our audience to interact with each other on our chat wall.